Good morning, everyone. David, and I'll be speaking this morning. The topic for today's meditation is compassionate communication. And I'd like to read the quote that is at the top of the page here from the founder of Sunburst, Paulsen. Before you speak, attempt to focus your consciousness upon the divine center of your soul. Make a choice of words that are kind and truthful. It's been said already this morning in our welcoming that today is the final day of our 4-day Kriya Yoga teaching weekend. And in a lot of ways, I feel like it's like a reception after a wonderful union that we've had together. And an opportunity to really celebrate and to appreciate the deep bonds that have been formed and the commitments, the deeper commitments that have been made internally to Spirit, and the way that each one of our hearts has been touched this weekend. I went to some of the classes, and all the way from the welcoming to the last class I went to, the information was just so full of Spirit and so wonderful. And at the welcoming, we had the opportunity to hear from each person who was there. And I just want to really acknowledge the folks who made the journey this weekend out to Sunburst Sanctuary to be attendees of the Kriya initiation. Each one of you spoke, and when each one of you spoke, I felt a very, very sincere desire. And some people speak more than others, but a lot of communication is experienced without words. And there's been no doubt this weekend of the sincerity of the souls who have come here. And I just want to acknowledge each one of you for, again, because it's been acknowledged before, but just for taking the time out of your schedules and making a commitment to be here for a few days and give yourself this deep, deep level of self-care that is so important. The opportunity to connect your soul with the soul of the universe and to connect the thoughts of your mind with the inspirations of your soul. This connection is so valuable, and everyone has it. Very few people take the time to cultivate it. I also want to acknowledge the facilitators this weekend who did such a great job of teaching classes. And I see some of the initiates shaking their head in agreement. I also want to acknowledge all of the Sunburst members, residents and otherwise, who put energy and attention into making this weekend possible. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it. The lawn doesn't get mowed by itself. This weekend we had a wonderful array of delicious food served to us by a loving soul, Simone, who's probably in the kitchen right now getting our lunch ready. I don't think she's in here. So many people put so much into making this happen. But also, I want to just acknowledge the people who come to Sunburst regularly every Sunday, who don't necessarily live here, but who are members, and they come here to keep the energy going. And it allows us to have the momentum and to have the foundation to even have an event like this. You know who you are, and we are grateful. And I'd like to go even further and acknowledge all of the people, all of the souls, and there's hundreds of them, who have journeyed through Sunburst over the last 53 years of Sunburst existence. And I'd like to acknowledge them for the positive contributions that they made to keep the Sunburst ship sailing forward through whatever time period they may have been here. Some stayed very briefly, maybe just a few days. Some may have stayed for a few months, and some may have stayed for a few years. And some of you just won't leave. So we would not be here if it were not for everyone who had contributed. And of course, I can't say thank you to those folks without mentioning our brother Norm, the founder of Sunburst, and the great focus of will and focus of knowing that he had a divine mission and never giving up on it. And he, if it weren't for Norm, and if it weren't for Yogananda, we wouldn't be here today. And I always like to remember that. We have a place where we can sit together and harbor our ships into a deep, deep harbor and feel the calm water of deep spirit together. And it's because people made the effort, and we are grateful. And along with Norm, who stands in the spirit and is never too far away, I'd like to acknowledge all of the elder brothers and sisters who stand in the light just outside of my vision and possibly your vision, but maybe not. Maybe you catch glimpses of them. I know some of you do now and then. There is a very large group of souls who are really interested in what's going on this planet. And they are standing by to support us, to give us inspiration, to help coax us along towards our own divine awakening. And of course, not just here in this little room, but everywhere across the planet. We each have a guardian angel. And there are others, many others, who stand in the light and support us. However, they are only as effective as the people on earth who are receptive to their influence, because we are the warriors here. Those of us who have found ourselves incarnated in these bodies are the ones who can really make a difference. And we can ask for guidance, and we will receive it. But if we don't ask, those souls can't really do that much. They need us to work through, to do the work here. And so the path that you've set your foot upon, each one of us here, it's bigger than we think about it usually, day in and day out. It is for the betterment of the planet and for the expansion of soul awakening across the planet. I think we all know when we have had what we could call compassionate communication with someone. We feel the virtue of compassion. And the virtue of compassion, it has no judgment. We might see someone who is in a world of hurt, and we can even see, well, the reason that happened is because of what they've done. Well, that right away can bring up judgment, like, well, they kind of deserve it, right? I mean, we've probably all had that feeling at some point or another. But when our hearts are open and full of the virtue of compassion, all we feel is love and empathy and a desire to help. And this is such a wonderful feeling. The virtue of compassion is so overwhelmingly positive. It adds to the path of positivity, which in and of itself could just be a spiritual path. Just be positive. Just find the goodness and the kindness and the love in life and help spread it and help support it in one another. This is bringing our practice from the mat or the chair out into the world. It's helping to facilitate a consciousness on the planet that could be called the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven upon earth. The kingdom of heaven is not necessarily a place we escape to when we leave these bodies, but it is a consciousness that we can become possessed of, that we exercise while we're in these bodies. And this is such a wonderful gift to have in our lives. When we're having a good day and we're feeling compassion and divine love, it's because the energies that we are carrying within us are in the centers within our body, the higher centers, the heart center, centers that are expansive and open and inclusive and forgiving. This is compassion. And to have compassionate communication, it's best if we can feel compassion while we're communicating. Sometimes it's hard to feel that. It's part of the human condition. And it feels like in many cases, I can speak for myself and I have many friends, that it's a daily process of whether or not you're going to experience life in the most positive way possible. And many times our hearts, it's hard for our hearts to be open and full of this deep, deep divine love if our hearts are restless. And we spent a lot of time this weekend talking about conscious breath and doing different breath work that helps steady our heart. We go from a restless heart to a steady heart. And as we continue to meditate and our heart becomes steady, we develop towards a devoted heart. And we start to feel this deep, deep devotion towards Divine Spirit. And we feel it towards the well-being and the betterment of each other as well. But it flows from this point within us of our connection with Divine Spirit. And it is through that devotion of our heart that we want to meditate more. And we want to meditate more deeply. And we start to feel the benefits of the devoted heart. And the devoted heart leads to the enlightened heart. And the enlightened heart is synonymous with cosmic consciousness. The opening of our true nature, the awakening within of who we really are, where our minds and our nervous systems realize the truth that our soul has always had since it came into our bodies. We no longer long for this loving connection, but we have direct experience with it. What a wonderful gift to even get a glimpse of this consciousness is such a wonderful gift. And when we read the words of Yogananda or Norm Paulsen or all of the other enlightened ones who have come before, we can tell that that information that they have is not just flowing out of their brain. It's flowing out of the universe. It's being registered through their physical brain and their physical nervous system, but it's flowing directly from the source, the thatness that created everything. And this is our birthright. It is our birthright to be alive in these bodies and to have that connection with that deep, deep source, the soul of the universe. When I first saw the topic for this weekend, and I realized it was the Kriya Retreat weekend also, I had an image that just flashed in my mind that I had never had before, and I thought about how out here on the ranch, I work on the ranch. That's my job, is out here a lot, and I get out into the different areas of the ranch, and I've noticed over the years that whenever the native soil has been disturbed, that in a lot of cases, the first things that start to take root in that newly disturbed soil are not the native grasses, but rather some thistle or other weed that has found its way into the property. And we have found, I was going to say through trial and error, but I'm just going to say we have found through error that if we don't get control of those thistles and those different noxious weeds, they can have a tendency to take over and kind of overtake the native grasses and become a real big problem on the land. So I was thinking about how in our meditations, as we circulate the light through our interdimensional spine, and we stir up, we literally stir up the soil that is within us, if you will, the garden that is within us. And many times when you first start out on the path, you might find that all of a sudden you're being confronted with some old noxious weeds that have been laying dormant in your book of life over the years. And it is not something to become alarmed about or discouraged with, because the meditation itself will solve the problem. Just continuing to circulate the light as we have been taught, it will not only help weed out those images that we don't really want to still have in our book of life, and help to transmute them through our interdimensional spine into the light, and to where they'll be gone forever. But the meditation tool is also It's like a water hose as well as a hoe. It will water the new seeds and the good seeds of cosmic awareness that we are planting within our inner fertile garden, a garden of Eden that exists within each one of us. I thought that was kind of fitting when I realized the topic today. And I know for myself, the way that I see the world is if I can draw some parallels to the world that I can see, between the world that I can't see, but I long to see, it helps me stay grounded in my practice. It helps remind me of how important it is to daily take some time. And you don't have to commit yourself to hours and hours of meditation. Even if you only have 5 minutes, and more than 5 minutes would be recommended, but if you only have 5 minutes every morning before you head out the door to just sit and be still and just be in the presence of the divinity that we have come from, that sustains us, and that in reality we are. We start to receive messages through our intuition, things that help us become better servants of that consciousness. So compassionate communication is something that we do with each other, and just as importantly, it is something that we do with ourselves. We love ourselves even when our garden is full of weeds. One time when I was a young man, Norm said to me, he said, "David, no matter how many times your garden comes up with weeds, just keep gardening." And for us, gardening is our daily practice, whatever our spiritual practices are. And meditation is the key. Yesterday, one of the folks here asked me about how have we stuck together so long here at Sunburst. And especially after the founder, who was so dynamic, left this earth. And that answer is always so easy for me. It's because we meditate together. That's it. It's because we meditate together, because there is a magical energy that happens when we meditate together. Energies between us are transmuted, and our roots go deep together. And then she said, "Well, how do you govern yourself?" That's a much harder answer. And that's like a whole nother topic. And that's something that is an evolution within a group this size. How do we govern ourselves? We're figuring that out 53 years on. We're still figuring that out. But from day one, how do we stay together? We meditate together. And hopefully by meditating together, it helps us govern ourselves also. So let's take the opportunity now to meditate together, to practice the technique that we've learned this weekend, and to enjoy the deep connection that we all have together. If we could see through enlightened eyes just how full of light we all are, and how we are bumping up against each other with the light of our auras and how we are mixing and melting and helping to support each other. That's what's happening while we sit together and support each other. And as we go into our individual practice, we feel that support. I'd like to lead us in a prayer which you're welcome to join in as we go into meditation. Divine Spirit, thankful are we to find ourselves here, sitting together with you and with one another. Please bless our efforts as we dive deep into the soul that you offer. Amen. I'd like to share a few closing thoughts today. I was thinking about Norm and how he was a man who, from a very young age, from childhood really, was prone to lots of visual experiences. He had a lot of visions, and he heard a lot of inner messages. And so it was kind of, you kind of had an expectation of yourself, or I'll say I had an expectation of myself, that those would be things that would start to develop regularly in my life as I meditated. And as the years went by, I continued to wait. And I'm still waiting. But at one point, I'd say maybe in around 1980, Norm said something that was really, it was good for me to hear, and I think probably for others as well. He said, I used to think that the indicator of spiritual progress was the level of different experiences that a person was having. But I've come to realize it really is how people live their lives and the way that they express in their daily life the spiritual principles that are being taught. And everyone's path is different. I think this was mentioned in the Kriya teaching yesterday, that some people are going to see things, and some people are going to hear things, and some people are going to feel things. And there is no right way. But the one thing that everyone can do is find ways to express their spirituality in their daily life, to be a signpost of what it means to have a spiritual practice. And when he said that, it made me, it gave me some relief, because I had been thinking, well, I must be doing something wrong because I'm not getting these incredible results that Norm talked about. But that's not the case. And I want you all to remember that as I remember it. We can't really judge ourselves against other people. In any circumstance, it's a losing enterprise to do that. And along those lines, someone else said to me that it's not what a person believes that defines them, but rather it's how they behave. And so we might have a lot of really great spiritual concepts rolling around in our head, and we might be thinking about them quite often. But if we're not being nice to each other, it's just a bunch of ideas. So I think compassionate communication really, really feeds right into that. It's a way for us to express the goodness and the love that we have inside. And when I think about it, I just think, is there a way for me to communicate something that doesn't end up assigning blame to anyone? Even if I disagree with their point of view, can I do it in a way that doesn't assign blame for how things may have gone or didn't go correctly? Can I do it without judgment? Not always. I can't always do it. But I like to make it a goal and work at it. Well, I want to thank you all once again for being here today, for sharing in this energy in this room together. for making the commitments that you've made in your lives to grow spiritually, to become better people.
I set my sail on the sea of life in hopes of finding the bright sun, in hopes of finding thee, in hopes of finding the bright sun upon the other shore. Star that shines, reveal thyself to me, O God, reveal thyself to me, reveal thyself to me, my God, beyond all space and time. Calls to eternity, my soul calls to eternity.